Welcome to Just Energy Radio with your host, naturopath and medical intuitive, Dr. Rita Louise. We have learned from Einstein's theory that matter and energy are one. Physicists believe that all systems in nature have their own particular way of vibrating. From the swinging of a pendulum to the waves of the ocean to the light that brightens the sky each day, each of these oscillates at its own unique rate. The same holds true for every thought, feeling, event, or word we speak. Each has its own frequency or rate of vibration. What many of us don't realize is when we take everything in our universe down to its simplest form, it is all just energy. Join Dr. Rita Louise on a journey through time and space where past, present, and future collide. Today, what you believe may be called into question. What we want to know is, who made up the rules? Be brave and step outside the box. We are about to turn our world upside down and venture into the unknown. Hold on. We are departing our own beliefs and entering alternative realms. Enjoy the possibilities.
Hello and welcome to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show today. We are going to have an interesting show. We have like a Dan Brown, Angels and Demons. In the first hour, we're going to be speaking with Barbara Martin and Dimitri Moraitis about communicating with the divine, and we're going to be talking all about angels. And in the second hour, we're going to have David Roundtree and Robert Lunt on talking about ghosts and do evil ghosts and demons exist. But Just Energy Radio is brought to you by soulhealer.com, where you can find out about all the products and services I offer, including medical intuition evaluations, energy healing, and psychic reading. So if there's stuff going on in your life, give me a call, send me an email, stop by the website, and we can set up time for a private consultation to help you experience wholeness in your life. It's also brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com, where you can jumpstart your intuition today by downloading our free 50-page guide. I just have one quick announcement. This weekend is Dash Beardsley Wake the Dead Conference. It's being held on Galveston Island, and it is really going to be a fun event. It is a mix of paranormal and entertainment. And proceeds, or a percentage of the proceeds, are going to the Galveston Food Bank. For more information, go to DashBeardsleyWakeTheDeadShow.com. That's DashBeardsleyWakeTheDeadShow.com. And so let me tell you a little bit about my guests, and we will get them on the air. Barbara Martin has been at the forefront of the metaphysical New Age movement for over 40 years. Her classes and workshops have always been in demand. She has extensive experience as a speaker before colleges, universities, scientific organizations, civic and community groups, and received many awards from International Toastmaster Club. Dimitri Moraitis, one day I'll actually say that right, is co-founder and executive director of Spiritual Arts Institute. He is an accomplished teacher, healer, and co-author of Karma and Reincarnation, Unlocking Your 800 Past Lives to Enlightenment, The Healing Power of Your Aura, and Change Your Aura, Change Your Life. So from spiritualarts.org, the author of the new book, Communicating with the Divine, Barbara Martin and Dimitri Moraitis. Hey guys, how are you?
Hey, we're good. How are you doing? Hello. Thanks for having us back on.
Well, I had so much fun when you were on the last time. When I saw you had a new book come out, I was like, yay, they get to come back on.
Yeah, wonderful. Oh, it's always a joy to be on here. And this is a very... sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, we're very excited about this book because it is all about the angels and the archangels and how important they are in our lives.
Well, it's interesting. I just book guests, open slots, fill slots, and there's not necessarily a whole lot of planning. I mean, every so often I'll do some planning on my part to have a show that comes together. And it just is interesting that the two of you, these two little groups of people are meeting in the first hour where we're going to be talking about angels, and then we're going to be talking about demons. And so I was like, wow, we got this little yin-yang thing going on.
Right.
But
well,
we've
there's
had
both sides of the coin,
Exactly.
Two sides of the coin.
We've had you guys on the show before, so I'm going to forego asking how you got into the whole business. And if people want to get some history and background or listen to the other show, that aired just for people's edification on 5/6/11. And that was our show on karma and reincarnation, and they can go into the archives and check that out. So let's just kind of jump into this, you know, and and I have to be honest with you guys. We have never done a show on the angelic realm
Oh,
on
wow.
Just Energy Radio. So you get to be our first angel experts. So
Okay. Well,
yeah,
it's so interesting that you mentioned about energy because that's one of their primary jobs. As you know, we work with the aura, and Barbara's the aura expert, and all our classes are not just about, understanding the aura, it's about changing, improving the aura is your personal energy field. It is the spiritual power that's flowing through you. And you can call on energy, as you know. You can call on power rays that you need to improve your life. But the question comes up, well, let's say I need more love in my life. I'm going to call on that rose pink light, that deep rose pink. But when I make the prayer request, how does that energy actually come to you? It's not like just floating in the atmosphere and sort of osmosis, comes into your aura. It has to be directed to you. And it is the angelic realm that directs the spiritual energy to humanity. They are feeding us the spiritual power we need in mind, body, and soul. So the very act of calling on them is one of the key ingredients of getting closer to the divine light. And it's so interesting, your work is all about energy, so angels are a key component. So, for example, with the love ray, which comes through as a deep rose pink, let's say I feel lonely, I feel sad, or I feel a little left out, or feel sorry for myself, or whatever, where I'm not feeling that love energy as strong as maybe I would like. You can make the request to receive the rose pink light, but at the same time, you would ask it under the angels of love. And there's a guiding archangel, which would be the Archangel Uriel. She's a very magnetic archangel. She's the one that's teaching humanity about, right, Barbara, the principles of love.
Yes.
Yeah.
well, this really wasn't where I was planning on going so early in the show, but I'm just going to go jump into this, because one of the things that I do as part of my practice is entity removal and spirit release work. And I have had a number of clients who have, and please forgive me if this comes out a little blunt, but, it's like, well, I pray to the angels and then this happens. And what is your guys' feeling about just kind of opening yourself up and saying, angels help me, without being more specific, asking for a specific angel to interact with you and open you up to a very specific energy?
Well, one of the first things we teach is spiritual protection. In our 6-step meditative process, the first step is to relax. The second step is put your protective light around you, because we do live in a sea of energy, and not all that energy is beautiful. And not all the spirits on the other side are, as you say, in the higher light. So kind of just, it's your intention that has a lot to do with what you attract. Like is going to attract like. So if your intention is extremely sincere and you're really trying to reach out to the higher, that will attract them. But sometimes we get a little confused. Barbara tells a story of, one of the lower forces, and he first tried to appear to her as very angelic and very divine and very holy, but the vibration was not that way. So the tip-off is always vibration. When I had some of my first experiences with a higher, I didn't even realize it was them. What I felt was this exhilarated feeling and sort of raised, heightened vibratory clarity. And later I realized, it was them coming around me, and that's why I was having these kind of sudden epiphanies. At the time I thought, I was in the arts at that time. I thought, I'm just being creative. But it wasn't. It was more than that. It was them coming around. So the tip-off is always vibration. If you feel uneasy about anything or anyone, even if they say they're in the light, even if they say they're spiritual, but your stomach does a few flip-flops, trust that intuition and make sure you stay protected. On the other hand, if you do feel that higher sense of consciousness, then yes, it is them coming around.
And that's a great piece of advice, because I think some people aren't aware that they can bring in or call in something that maybe isn't very good for them and their higher self and their forward movement.
Yes. Well, it comes back to motive, and we were talking about that with the karma. Um, we're held accountable by our motives. So if I'm trying to first of all use angels to try to get the person that I want, get money that I want, if I'm trying to treat them like a servant, you're really not going to attract them, first of all. And second of it, it's very alterative. You can inadvertently attract the lower. So you have to remember, they're not there to kind of, give us the winning lotto numbers, but what they are there is each of us has a purpose, something we came here to complete, and they know that purpose. They know our strengths and weaknesses. So every day they're inspiring us with what we need to do. And when we reach out to them in that way, how can I fulfill my purpose? How can I, stay connected? Then they will respond and you'll get the right. So be careful how you approach them. One of our big things in our teaching is we have been doing a lot of workshops on this. And one of the trick is, we've been doing workshops that talk to the higher, ask them a question, and and one of the big challenges is them learning how to talk to the higher. There's a certain way of approaching it, and it's not exactly like you and I talking to each other, but the way you frame the question to the higher is often how you invite the response. And I'll give you an example. There was a woman that came for a consultation, and she was having an affair with a married man, and she was asking for guidance. And I don't know what she had in mind, but she very quickly came through, stop this, it's not a good idea. She got furious. It wasn't what she wanted to hear at the moment. And later she kind of realized the value of it. At the time she kind of got huffy and said, well, I didn't need to come here to hear that. My father could have told me this. Well, my first thought was maybe your father was, giving you wise advice. Sometimes we expect some type of justification or big, giant message from the higher, but often it'll be exactly that, the still small voice, giving you the answer and the guidance that you need. And you have to be ready for what they want to say to you. And that's another thing we talk about when you reach them is don't condition the question and don't condition the answer. In other words, if I do want someone, if I say to them, the higher asks, well, gee, how do I get this person in my life? Do I do this? Do I do that? Well, I've conditioned the question a little bit, because what if the response is, that person's not for you? So
that's so true, because people will ask the question, and even when you're just doing a reading, they ask the question, and then they get the answer they don't want to hear. They get upset.
Right. Because they're not ready to hear it at that moment. And they're trying to, it's not your job as an intuitive or as someone here to tell them, to stroke the ego. The goal is to just say, here's what I'm getting. You decide what you're going to do with the information. And that's another thing we have to be careful is that the higher is not going to do the growing for us. Many times people say, oh, just higher, tell me what to do and I'll do it. That's not why we're here. Earth is a school. We're here to learn and grow. And there's an old axiom that says, the seeking of the philosopher's stone sets the condition to find it. So in other words, they will help us do it. They will point us in the right direction, but they won't do it for us. So if we're waiting for some big answer to guide us in our life's pursuit, again, we may be waiting an awfully long time. What we need to do is get in motion, start using our intuition and inspiration, and then they will come in and kind of cooperate with the process. They're there to help us do our growing, but again, not do it for us.
And from your experience, this has been my experience, that it seems like people are so much more in tune with their intuition in their workspace. They're working on a project and they'll think to themselves, well, what should I do next? Or how can I solve this problem? And they'll listen to and trust that inspiration, that intuition, but then when it comes to their personal life, it just seems to fall apart.
Well, you will notice that, and even in ourselves, we'll have our areas of strength and our areas of weakness. So maybe someone has put a lot of time and energy honing in their professional skills, and their intuition has improved. But, when it comes to personal, they've not put any energy into it. So it's where you put your attention. And we are juggling many balls in our life. We have many areas of our life to develop. It's not just career. Some people actually, it's the opposite. Let's say they're really good in their personal life, but boy, they've kind of messed up their professional life a bit, And it's just like a garden. If you tend to water one part of the garden more than the other, well, the flowers are going to grow better there, and the others are going to be neglected. So you have to make sure you're applying the spiritual principles in all departments of your life. And of course, this means a balanced life. If you're spending 80 hours a week at your job, and you come home and you basically crash, there's not a lot of time to develop the personal part of you. So somewhere you've got to find that balance to feed the inner, all the areas, and the same with the spiritual. Sometimes we have people say, "Oh, I love to meditate, but I just don't have time. I'm so busy." And we tell people, well, if meditation is your time to connect with the divine, you're telling me you don't have time for the divine? See, it's a matter of priority. We have to set our priorities, what's important in our life, and make room for the most important things. And some things we may have to let go. We can't do everything. We only have 24 hours in a day.
Well, I'm waiting for those 48 hours to turn up. Although, I don't know that I'd really want to pack more work into what I'm already doing.
Yeah, no, I think what technology was supposed to make our life easier and more leisurely, right? But now it's made us work harder than ever before.
I know. I always think about the Jetsons, and I bring that up a lot. He only worked 4 whole hours a day, and it was just so labor intensive.
Well, we could be like the lions, right? Sleep 16 hours and do our work.
Well, there was a time that we did get to do that.
Right.
Not anymore.
Exactly.
You're talking about connecting with this higher dimension, this higher realm, and we mentioned angels, and there are a lot of people that are familiar with the concept of spirit guides.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's the difference between working with or communicating with your spirit guide, or working with and communicating with the angelic realm?
Oh, that's a great question, because there's a big difference. And many people kind of lump the two together, which is an unfortunate mistake. As you know, the term spirit guide was actually kind of coined in the 1800s with the rise of spiritualism. And it was originally meant to mean any discarnate spirit that makes a communication and shares information is like a spirit guide. And lately it's been expanded to mean almost anybody. My dog Fido is my spirit guide from the other side. But actually, from the point of view of the hierarchy, a spirit guide is a human soul on the other side that has reached a certain level of enlightenment. In other words, they have learned how to make a direct connection themselves to the spiritual hierarchy. And they're so helpful because they're very close to us in vibration, being in the human kingdom, but they have, climbed a couple more notches than we have. Now, the angels are in a completely different kingdom than human. They are not human. They do have faces, they do have hands, and in the book we do these illustrations of how Barbara has seen the angels, and they do have faces, but it doesn't make them human in the same sense that we're human. And so it's a little harder to reach them because they're at this very different vibratory level. But the spirit guides are, in essence, the link to connecting with the angels. What we emphasize a lot in our classes are what are known as angelic teachers. And the angelic teachers are the ones, they're literally assigned to us. And it is their job to help us fulfill our purpose. And the spirit guides will help us to connect to them. And when they do give us information, and if it's really coming from them, they're getting it from the angelic teachers. But you can make also a direct connection with the teachers, directly without the help of the spirit guides. You do that through reaching, there's a chakra point about 2 feet above your head, the higher self. And through that, you can actually, access them. They're working with us every day, but we're not always reaching out to them. And we do have some assigned. Now, Barbara, in the case of Rita, how many angelic teachers are assigned to her right now?
3.
3 of them. Okay. So they're working with you on a regular basis to help you in the work that you do and the things that you're doing in your personal life and all of that. We also have assigned to us, which is a lot of fun. These are known as joy guides, not spirit guides, but joy guides. Barbara, talk about the joy guides a little bit.
Well, they look like 10-year-olds. They're very happy, and they want to help you, and they love traveling with you.
And what are the names of the joy guides of Rita's?
Rita has Stephanie and Andy.
Andy, okay. And we all have them, and these are, of course, like their nicknames. And their job is, as Barbara said, to put a smile on our face, to kind of not get too caught up in the worries or distresses of the world, and to remember to take time to have fun. Sometimes we don't do that. We get too serious about things, and they're kind of a reminder to have fun. We were getting ready for a trip recently, and I could feel their energy in the house, and just, like when kids are screaming, having fun, running around, it was kind of like that vibration. And it was just very uplifting. It made it kind of like even fun to pack because you could feel their energy around there.
Oh, I just thought that was me. I'm like that pretty much every day.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, then you're a joy guide yourself.
See, and I never heard of a joy guide, but I like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the book, we talk about actually 7 different degrees of angels. And the angels, we must remember, are different from the archangels. So there's 7 degrees within the angelic kingdom, and then when you finish with the 7 degrees, you evolve on to the archangelic kingdom. And the archangels, these are mighty celestial beings. These are like generals. So they have whole segments of the heaven worlds guiding over them. And while the angels generally do not give names other than these nicknames of the joy guides, the archangels have sort of official title names, like the Archangel Michael. When people call an Archangel Michael, they have to remember they're not just calling on a being, they're calling on an entire office. It's like saying the President of the United States. So you're involving legions of beings. So now Michael, for example, he's an extremely dynamic archangel. So if you're dealing with issues of confidence and self-assurance, and leadership, courage, any of those types of things, Michael is the one to call on, and the angels that work with him will send the light. He works a lot with the gold light, and a lot of that energy will help with that. So he's sort of a complement to Uriel, which brings in a lot of the magnetic, loving type energies. So each archangel has kind of their job, their area of jurisdiction in the service of humanity. And it's amazing how much they can do. Some people have asked, well, gee, if so many people pray to, let's say, Archangel Michael, how can he work with so many people at the same time? Some people think he can be in many places at the same time. Well, actually, he's a being just like we are. He's an evolving soul just like we are. He can't be in more than one place at the same time, but what he can do is project his consciousness in more than one place at the same time. The archangels have a certain level of omniscience, and this is how they're able to work with so many people at the same time, and they do it beautifully. And if we do call out again in reverence for assistance and help, you may not get Michael himself, but you will certainly get the energy from there, and you will get one of those that are working under the Michael banner.
Well, let me ask you this question, because there are so many people that do healing work and whatever who will say, well, I call in the name of Michael, but would it be more correct for them to really understand all of the different, I like your term offices, You know, this is the name of the office of love, and this is the name of the office of this, because it really kind of puts a different spin on it, where it's not a person, it's more of a position or an energy
Right.
kind of thing. I really like that. So would it be more correct for people to understand, you know, you're not going to go to the motor vehicle department if you have a water leak?
Exactly. 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 You don't go to a doctor when you need legal advice. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
maybe. I don't know, but
Well, Helena Blavatsky, the mystic, she was saying one of the keys of learning to directly commune with the higher is knowledge. You have to be knowledgeable on the subject. You have to know exactly what you're doing. When you're invoking, if you don't know what you're invoking, you're not sending a very strong signal. But when you really do know what you're doing, then the signal is much, much stronger. Now, first of all the archangels heal. But the master archangel, the office of healing, is the Archangel Gabriel. He brings in an energy called the blue light fire, which is the single greatest healing ray there is. And while, again, any of them can come in and help, yes, if I was involved in well, we are involved in healing, but anyone involved in healing, I would say make sure you're asking for the help of the office, of the lineage of the hierarchy under Archangel Gabriel, especially in your healing work. And if you are a good healer, you're already getting his help. Because if you're getting energy from the higher, at some point he's going to be involved somewhere down the line to help you get connected in that process. I remember when my first experiences of working with him, there was a big circle healing. We were doing a big circle healing, and I was standing in the middle holding my hand above each person's head. And this one woman, I didn't know who she was. I sat in. I put my hand above, and there was literally, I've never had this feeling before that time. It was like a lightning bolt struck my hand. And then the lightning bolt went to her. And the minute it went to her, she burst into tears. And it was his ray. It was Gabriel himself coming in. And later we found out why he was making this visitation. She had gone through probably one of the most horrific, difficult childhoods you could ever imagine. And this was a moment where they came in to really help heal her, and it was a transitional moment in her life. She was suicidal. There were a lot of things going on before that moment, and this was the beginning of her journey back into the light. So these holy ones will come in. We don't know their rhyme or reason of things, but they will come in at a moment of need, and healing especially. There's something about healing that brings the holy ones closer to us than almost anything else. When you really give yourself of service to help others in that way, you attract the higher. When there's no, especially when it's no thought of return, you're doing it just to be of service. There's something about that brings them in closer than anything else.
you know, when we think of the concept of angels and archangels, the concept in my mind comes from a Judeo-Christian theology.
Right.
But do we find similar concepts in other spiritual traditions around the world?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. First of all, and this is something we made very big in the book, that the study of the hierarchy is non-denominational. They're universal to all of us. It wasn't that long ago, we weren't really communicating that well with other parts of the world. The cultures were not nearly as integrated as they are today. So obviously, nomenclatures, terminologies, they developed in certain ways in different parts of the world. And now that we're all coming together, if you strip away the different cultural influences, you'll find a very, very similar scenario. Of course, the Indians talk about the devas, and there's you'll find different traditions using different words, but still describing celestial beings. So yes, while we may use a little different wording in different parts of the world, it's the same hierarchy helping all of us. Absolutely, absolutely. In a way, it's sort of an honor. For example, in music, classical music, a lot of the wording for different time signatures is Italian because it was developed in Italy. But the world uses it. So yes, some of these things, the wording was developed a lot. Basically, our modern knowledge of the angels, as we understand them, came from the Hebrew mystics. The Christians expanded and later adopted it. So they got it. some of that came from the Chaldean mystics. So there was this lineage there, but Michael is a Hebrew word. The El is meaning of God, and but it's become a universal term. So by using that name, you're not limiting yourself. You're still, you can use it, in the greater sense.
Okay. And just for everybody's edification, how do we know so much about the angelic realm? I mean, they're obviously not here walking around. We don't have any, we can't jump on a boat and go visit them and, take notes. So how have we learned about, the different angels, the archangels, and the offices that they hold?
Well, actually, they're around more than we realize. You're true. You're right. We don't see them. One of the things we were trying to talk in the book is how much our life is in their hands. These are not beings to call on when we're just in trouble or we're trying to lead, quote unquote, a spiritual life. From the moment we're born to the moment we pass on from this life, they have been with us and will be with us through every moment of triumph, through every moment of tragedy. They are a constant, companion in our journey. So the question is not if they're there, the question is how can we better attune with them. The direct knowledge of them, of course, comes from the mystics, comes from those that have the direct experience. One of the great things of the book is celebrating Barbara's lifetime of experience. She was seeing auras at age 3 and angels from that very young age, and it only deepened through the years, had some training with high-powered mystics that also were seeing the angelic realm. And these things they're like, just like we learn from a Mozart or a Beethoven about what is possible in music. They're mystics that we learned from through the ages that teach about what this is. But in the end, we will all have a direct experience of the Holy Ones, if it's in this life or a future. Barbara had a student of many years, a very dedicated soul, Lois, and took volumes of notes. But she would complain, I don't see the angels, I don't see the light. But she knew the value. And that's also what we teach. It's not about seeing, it's about you doing it. Well, one day she got the visitation very unexpectedly. An angel came and presented itself to her, kissed her on the cheek. But she wasn't so surprised. It was more like a validation. She said, of what I already knew in my heart. So they're there. They're not God. They're the emissaries of the divine. But they are the pathway to the divine. There's a wonderful allegory in the Old Testament, in the Tanakh, of Jacob's ladder. The patriarch Jacob had a dream of a golden ladder that went all the way to heaven. But what people don't always remember is on that ladder were angels at every step of the way, ascending and descending. Meaning, again, at every step in our spiritual journey to the higher, it's those divine ones that are there urging and helping us to get there.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you something that might be a little controversial in your mind. Not controversial in mine, but a little controversial in yours, perhaps. But there are people that believe that angels are, I'm just going to say extraterrestrial beings because they're not human. And how would you respond to a comment or a statement like that?
Well, I think that's kind of deferring. In other words, they still want to say they're physical. Extraterrestrials, these are beings that come from another planet. They're still physical. But we have to remember, first of all, as far as extraterrestrials, the universe is alive. So obviously there are beings on other planets, even though we haven't, publicly, let's say, made that declaration yet. But there does life exist on other planets. But we have to remember the hierarchy is not just about visiting and saying, "Hey, how you doing, dude?" These are the hierarchy is an ascending order of divine beings in the spiritual realms that are helping us to fulfill our purpose. They're not just coming by to sort of see what's going on the planet. They are an indispensable, integral part. They are as much a part of Earth as the air that we're breathing. The plants that we're seeing, they're integrated to the system to that refined degree. The Islamic mystics would say, an angel comes with every drop of rain. They're that involved with the process. So they're not some weird thing that kind of comes around us. There's a great Kabbalistic axiom that says a stone becomes a plant an animal a man, a man a God, meaning that the soul is going through all these evolutionary stages. So the angels aren't some beings from other, they are another dimension, but they are, in a sense, our older brothers and sisters. They are still part of the earth in the sense that they're still going through an evolutionary process, but they've reached a higher level than we have. And that's why they're so helpful to us, because they have gone to that place.
So we have a question in the chat room that kind of goes with this little piece of conversation, and it's from Jim, and he wants to know, so why are they focusing on Earth? Why are they here helping us if there is life throughout, I was going to say the galaxy, in a galaxy far, far away, but why us? Or are they out helping all life?
Oh, there's a hierarchy for everything in life has a hierarchical order. We're talking about now, this discussion is about the hierarchy that's helping humanity on Earth, the 7 billion souls on Earth. So, but there's a hierarchy of the animals, different from the human. There's a hierarchy for the plants, the nature spirits. Other planets have their own hierarchies. So it's an infinite process. It's just part of the way life is organized. So yes, if we were to go to, a different solar system far, far away, and there was, life, whether it was physical or spiritual, you'd find a hierarchy working on those planets. As a matter of fact, metaphysically, the definition of a planet is a field of evolution. That's the way it's defined metaphysically. It's a conscribed area of space designed as an educational, spiritual, growing center. It's what a planet is. So we incarnate on a planet to learn and grow and develop. Whether, for us, we will stay here incarnating on this planet because we have to go through the whole cycle of growth here. Just like you don't transplant a tree, when it's become a giant. You let it grow and develop and mature where it started its growth process. But in other planets, there are others going through their own evolutionary path. And it's all trying to get to the divine source, and eventually it does kind of merge together, but that's, further down the line.
Interesting. Very interesting. Then let me kind of follow up on that question. So there's the spiritual hierarchy here, and so we have the angels and then the archangels and, whatever, and then there's God up at the top. And so then what you're saying is on some other planet, they have their angels and archangels, whatever they would be.
Right.
And then somewhere all of this merges into God.
Right.
Because I'm assuming there's only one God, even for aliens.
Right. Well, it becomes, we were born as evolving souls in the kingdom of God. We were like, infants in there. And then we started our pilgrimage. We were like seeds planted in the ground. And so, yes, God may have planted us in the ground here in this solar system. He planted other souls, or he in the neutral sense, planted other souls in other domains. And it was all one great, big, beautiful area. Just like right now, we live in different countries on the Earth. Well, we live in different areas of the galaxy. But yes, at one point, when you merge back to the kingdom of God, you do interact with these other divine ones that are from other evolutionary streams.
What is our relationship with God? Or maybe you should define what God is and what that relationship is.
Boy, that could be a whole
I know.
by itself.
In 30
but
seconds
you know what? I'll
less.
say it this way. Let me start this way, since the focus is on the hierarchy, because sometimes people ask, if God is out there, why not just pray to God? Why include the hierarchy? Now, we must remember, on one sense, we're as divine as we will ever be. Our immortal spark, that spark of life, is part of the eternal process of life. It's without beginning or end. So our evolution is primarily an evolution in consciousness. One of the things that makes the angels so profoundly helpful is they have with them a conscious awareness of God. They are not questioning whether God is. They are aware of that fact. It's just like they know there's a sun in the sky. So when they come around, one of the things that's so helpful is they bring that consciousness with it. We in the human form are building that awareness. And when we cross that bridge, it's what we call enlightenment. Paramahansa Yogananda used to describe it, seeing God face to face while in a physical body. He didn't mean it literally face to face, but what he meant was awakening to the God presence that's within each of us. Not as an act of faith, not as an act of belief, but a direct experience. The Upanishads, mostly, there's some beautiful descriptions there of the God experience and what that's like. So if we think of God like a trillion-watt power station, and right at this moment in consciousness we are the 20-watt light bulb, we can't handle the trillion watts directly, so we have the emissary of the holy ones to act as that intermediary, to help build up our power. We have this auric field. It's consciousness. The aura is consciousness. So the more power we build in our aura, the higher in consciousness we climb, and eventually that opens the door to the direct divine experience of God. And God is part of the fabric of what life itself is. So we're trying to tune in to the conscious process of life as we draw closer to God. We were born of God as in this human experience. We're going through the pilgrimage of creation. Eventually we'll make our way back to the Godhead, but it won't be as infants. It won't be as babies. It will be as fully mature human souls. We'll be consciously aware of the process. We'll be co-creative. And when we reach that glorious pinnacle, which we're all destined to reach, it won't be the end of our journey. There'll be obviously a celebration, but then it'll be the beginning of a new journey in the angelic realm. And then that will continue and continue and continue. So the angels evolve to the archangels evolve to the great leaders of the hierarchy, and then even when we finish with the hierarchy connected to Earth or to humanity, there's another hierarchy beyond that leads us to the God called this is the Deva kingdom. Jeffrey Hudson used to talk about these beings of being colossal, 100-foot celestial beings that would be, sending auras over whole mountain ranges. So the hierarchy continues in incredibly beautiful ways.
But see, now I'm thinking, I'm just like this little lowly human person, and now I have to work to become an angel, and then if I'm really good, I'll get promoted and become an archangel, and then if I'm really, really, really good, then one day I might be a diva. When am I going to reach nirvana?
No, you'll reach nirvana long before that. But they asked Blavatsky that. When you reach perfection, is it over? Are you, on clouds playing harps and things like that? He says, no. You grow from perfection to perfection. So first of all, the journey is incredibly beautiful. I mean, let's think about what we're saying now. We are going to have a moment as human beings, all of us, whether it's in this life or a future life, and what difference does it make if it's this or a future? It's a drop in eternity, where we will have a direct experience of the divine source of life itself. How exciting could that possibly be? And at that point, we will be living in that consciousness. It won't be a momentary thing that we live for a moment, it's over. It will be a transformative moment. We will change our whole psyche, our whole thinking, emotional patterns will become different after that day. It will become more elevated. And we'll become more empowered. We will be able to do things that seem almost impossible right now. And that will be the next level of our development. And that will lead to another and another and another. It's all part of a beautiful process. But we must remember, too, this is something that the Holy Ones teach us. And they don't say this just to make us feel good. They say this as a statement of fact. If one soul were missing, creation would not be complete. So it doesn't matter where we are in the puzzle right now. We're not only part of the divine plan, each of us are an indispensable part of the divine plan. The higher doesn't look down on us. they know we're brothers and sisters in light. They say God is not a respecter of persons, meaning God, they see that divine spark in us and they recognize its immortality. We have to learn to see it ourselves. And that's what compassion's about. Compassion is being able to recognize that spark in ourselves and to see it in other people. Even if they put on an ugly face, we can see past the face because we can see the spark within. And that's what we're aiming to do. And that's a beautiful thing. And that will make us feel part of the greatness of life. You touched on an interesting thing because there's children or kids in school, when they hear about the immensity of the universe, some people say, wow, look at what an incredible thing we're part of. And others say, gee, I'm not even the speck on the speck of the speck of the dust. But it's all a matter of perspective. We can look at the immensity of life and say we're part of that, which we are. And that's really the metaphysical way to look at it.
I'm looking at the clock. We're running out of time, and I want to touch on this subject, so I'm going to kind of shift gears here a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking about how we're going to be talking about demons in the second hour, but I would like to get your take on it because as the story goes, Lucifer, I'm just going to use his name, was an archangel and went against the grain and was banished, or whatever story you want to put there. From what your information and your studying, how do these more negative or rebellious angels and archangels fit into this whole thing?
Well, by the way, there's a whole section in the book on the dark side of life. So we certainly recommend, if people are interested, to pick up that topic, that book, because that's an important topic to have a mature understanding of the higher, and not to think it's all lilacs and roses. We must realize that the hierarchy, these holy ones have free will. They're not doing this because they're compelled to do it. They do the work of the divine because they desire to do it. The joy of doing it. And yes, in the case of some, they became so entranced with their own splendor. In the case of the archangel Lucifer, who fell, there's the whole thing that happened there, he became sort of entranced by his own majesty. And then instead of glorifying the divine, he started glorifying himself. The challenge with Lucifer is he thinks he is God. And he's trying to, it's not really us that he's after. He's after the hierarchy. He's trying to essentially topple the hierarchy. And the problem is he's not working alone. He's got legions of entities working with him and demons working with him, fallen angels. Remember, these archangels were they had whole armies with them. They do have them, like Michael. Well, Lucifer, he convinced a third of his army legion to follow him on this personal quest of ambition. Now, we got to remember, there's a principle that says no negative energy can enter your aura unless you permit it. And this is true even of the entities. Yes, they will try to trip us up. They will try to do things to disturb us because they want our light. That's what they're really after. It's not us so much. It's the light that they want from us. But if we stay strong in the light, we keep our protection and don't dwell on, the dark side too much, they really won't be able to influence you very much. It's when we open up to, endless angers, or we do things like steal or lie or cheat, then when we start doing those things, doesn't mean automatically they're around us, but it opens the energy up. And that can lead to those things. And then we have to be careful there. Because as you say, once they get around, they can attach, and then you do have to do this whole releasement process, which is not easy because they don't want to go. And so it is something to be careful about, absolutely.
And it just seems like, where the world is going, and I hate even saying this, but there really is a battle for our souls going on right now.
Well, there is a battle for the dominion, absolutely. Remember, the most valuable thing you possess is your spiritual light. And that's what they want. It's not us per se they want. They want our light because they have forfeited it. The holy ones get their power directly from the divine. That's what gives them the ability to do what they do. But if you refuse to work with the divine, you don't get that same connection anymore. So they have to steal it. And this is why they do what they do. They're trying to steal that light to further their own ambitions. And we just have to deny them that. We just have to refuse, even if you see negative things happen, you don't have to give in to that. You don't have to give in to angers and frustrations. Remember, we're not always going to be in control of what's happening to us, but we're always in control of how we handle it. That biblical reference, resist not evil, didn't mean resist, that means react not to it. Pray for others, do things that you need to do to help others, to help yourself, to defend yourself. But there's people that get so obsessed with the dark side. The challenge is you can actually attract it. Because one time we were doing a script, we were writing something, we were talking about one of the lower forces, and one of them came into the room and said to Barbara, Barbara said, what do you want? She says, you called me. He says, oh, I didn't call you. I just, we're talking about, this kind of thing. But they can be that tuned in, you see. So you have to be very careful in that area that really in our classes we tell people put the light, keep strong, but don't dwell on it too much. It's more important to dwell on the light and keep that strong. And if you feel any negative entity nearby, you call on the light immediately, you call on the holy ones immediately, and in a commanding tone, you tell that spirit to leave. And you have to be very strong in those scenarios. And they will eventually go.
See, but you said the magic word, eventually.
Yeah. Well, you have to be strong. I mean, again, if it's just like you don't leave your front door unlocked, right, so anybody can come walking in the house. So we take natural precautions in the physical realm. Well, there's just certain precautions you need to take in the spiritual, too. And if you do that, you'll be okay.
But see, I think it's great advice, and I just so appreciate where you guys are coming from with that whole area, because, like I said, there are so many people, it's like, that will just say, well, call your angels around you. It's like, no, not in that general of a way,
right.
Because you don't know what angels you just are calling around you.
Well, again, it's a starting point. One of the first things we say is simply acknowledge them. That's how you get closer to them. So at least they're thinking about them because you are where you place your attention. But then exactly as you say, again, you like anything, like any skill or art or science, there's things you have to learn. If you want to be a good musician, you have to learn music. You can't just tinker at the keyboard and say I'm a musician. You have to learn the skills. So metaphysics is a science. It's an art. It's all these things combined. I've been 30 years working with Barbara on this, and I'm still learning. There's a lot to learn in this area. Mm-hmm. It's a study of lifetimes.
Guys, it is almost time, and I heard from you before we came on that you're going to be in Dallas, and we got 1 minute to do this.
Fort Worth
so
Unity
what's
on
going
Sunday
on?
the 7th. We'll be doing the Sunday service in the morning. We'll be doing a workshop on communing with the divine at the Unity Fort Worth and it's going to be a great group of people there. They're going to have a little reception, some food. So we hope you guys can come. You mentioned spiritualarts.org. That's our website. We do online classes. We're touring. We'll be in Chicago. The book is available everywhere. It's online. There's also the audio book, the complete read of the book. And it's really just packed with information, really almost encyclopedic. And we did that deliberately to really help people understand the vastness and the beauty of what the hierarchy is all about.
And I really just appreciate, you guys and your work and everything that you do. Okay, so Dallas, Chicago,
actually,
where else?
Fort Worth.
Or Fort Worth. Well,
yeah.
Dallas, Fort Worth. I mean, I got people all over. So, the Metroplex. They're going to be in the Metroplex. And
there you go. Excellent.
Chicago.
Yes, Chicago.
Where else are you guys going to be?
And then we'll be in Encinitas. We just finished a tour. We were in Northern California and Columbus. But this is a one for this month. And then our classes start in October. So if they really want to learn more about how to work with the energy, we encourage you to try those online classes, the Change Your Aura, Change Your Life Foundation class. it changed my life. So it will really get you to work hands-on with the energies and to really get closer to the holy ones.
Perfect. Well, now I know that the music is going to be coming up in a second, but I just wanted to give you a chance to get it all out there.
Absolutely. And thank you for your good work, too, and all that you're doing.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to let you guys go. And until next time, you guys be blessed.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, bye-bye.
That's Barbara Martin and Dimitri Moraitis. Their webpage is spiritualarts.org. Their new book, which is really good, Communing with the Divine, A Clairvoyant's Guide to Angels, Archangels, and the Spiritual Hierarchy. And we will be back with David Roundtree and Robbie Lunt after these words from our sponsor.
Just Energy Radio with your host, Dr. Rita Louise, will return right after these messages.